Welcome to this episode of What's Happening Waupaca. I am Joni. Today we are talking about a fascinating topic that I think everybody is going to be interested in. We are talking about youth financial literacy, something I think is super, super important for kids today. Even working with adults in the finance industry, you find that they could have used some of that teaching as a kid. So this is going to be a great show. I'm really excited about it. We have Liz Kinnear, who is with the Waupaca Public Library. We have Connie Henn, who's with CAP Services. She runs the VITA program. She'll tell us about that. And we have Josh Pauling from Farmers State Bank that does youth education. So we're going to jump right in. What I really would like to do, and I'll start with you, Liz, is tell me just a little bit about what you do here at the library.
I'm the exhibit room coordinator at the library, so my job is to bring in exhibits. We have about 6 to 8 exhibits throughout the year. They range from financial literacy exhibits like this to textiles, which was our previous exhibit. So any cultural sort of educational exhibit is what we try to bring in to the library. And then along with the exhibits, we provide programming. So with each exhibit, we try to have at least 2 to 3 programs that complement and enhance that exhibit. They're open to all patrons and usually almost all ages as well for the programming. Exhibits are open to everybody.
And they're really great. If you haven't seen an
Thank
exhibit, you need to come in and see one because they're pretty cool. Connie?
I manage the VITA program. As you mentioned before, we do taxes free of charge. We prepare taxes free of charge for low to moderate income taxpayers. There is no age limit on it. We tend to help the people that are less than 200% of the poverty level. We have had people as young as 14 come in to file their taxes. We are very focused on encouraging savings at our site by splitting the refunds or putting it in their savings account. We have different sweepstakes and so on. We really gear towards the savings part because we are doing these taxes free of charge. We're saving each person an average in Waupaca County $250 by preparing them free of charge. Just a little extra for them to save.
You bet. When they have a hard time saving anyway.
Definitely, definitely.
Right. Josh?
So I am a personal banker for Farmers State Bank, and so I do a lot of the account opening processes, opening up the savings accounts, checking accounts, a lot of things in regards to that. And I also handle our IT side of things and our financial education for the kids. So I help coordinate going into the elementary schools and the middle schools and a little bit the high schools as well, getting our employees in there and having those conversations with the kids in the community.
That's great. So this is going to be a great conversation with us because you guys all touch on financial literacy and youth financial literacy. And that's really what our first segment is all about. Is I want you guys to define for me what youth financial literacy is.
So when I look at youth financial literacy, I'm looking at helping the kids understand what savings are, trying to how to invest their money, ways to help them in the future. I hear a lot of parents that when they bring their kids into open accounts, they're talking about, I wish I would have learned this when I was in school, or I wish I would have known this before I graduated high school. And so we start taking those ideas and those concepts and figure out, okay, how can we teach the kids these things, understanding how to balance a checkbook, how to even write a check, or how to open up an account. So it's really helping those kids anywhere from, we start at kindergarten and we go all the way up to the high school level. Teaching them just the basics about banking so that way when they get out into the real world, they start understanding some of those different things and are a little bit more prepared.
Through the VITA program, we encourage the parents to bring their children along. And as we prepare the returns, we talk about different things, like maybe they're withholding way too much and getting too big of a refund, or maybe they aren't withholding enough and then they end up paying at the end. So we like to involve the young people in there. As I said, we do have young people that come in, high school kids. We do their taxes free of charge. We talk to them. And that's the most important thing, is they learn from seeing and they learn from hearing. So even if they're in our site, they are still listening. They're just little sponges and they're listening to everything that's going on and they're thinking, wow, that would be a good idea, something of that sort.
Well, and for us, financial literacy right now is just really pushing the basics and targeting the the 7 to 11-year-olds. That's what our exhibit currently is targeted toward. But just the basics of what is currency. A lot of people use credit cards and debit cards now, so just to get kids to understand that it's not just a piece of plastic, that it's actually coins and dollars and paper money, and that it's worth something and it has a value, but also that there are services that can be worth a value. That's all part of financial literacy, is that when you're working, you're trading your service to earn money. And so to get a better understanding that it's not just a credit card, it's not just this paper money, there's more to it. There's trading, and to be educated at a young age, hopefully that'll stick with them as they continue on.
So what do you think are the topics that kids should be talked to about as far as finances to help them prepare for
I think
adulthood?
the biggest thing is going along with what you said, with understanding that money isn't all just on cards.
Right.
The biggest thing that I see with the kids that we're teaching is they're like, oh, my parents have, all this money, I can get whatever I want, I need these things, because they have a card that they're paying with. They don't understand that money isn't unlimited. So, trying to explain to kids that money doesn't grow on trees. It actually has to be earned by working, doing chores, things like that, and trying to help them understand how that process works, and that you take that money to trade it for goods.
Well, and that there's a big difference between needs and wants as well. So especially as a young saver, a young person just getting a job, looking at it from that analytic mind of what do I really need versus what do I really want, and setting up saving and financial goals that way too, to look at it in terms of not just what I really want, but a basic need. And as they get older, especially as those emerging adults have their own jobs and their own homes, whatever it is, to understand that is a huge thing if you can get it at a young age.
And I'm glad you focused on that card, because I find that happening with my own grandchildren, where, Grandma, will you buy me this? Well, no, Grandma doesn't have money for something that expensive. Well, don't you have a card? So it's a learning situation then, when I have to explain to them, you can have gifts for birthdays, you can have gifts for Christmas, needs and wants. I think that's very, very important.
And it's always an interesting conversation when you have it with younger kids with needs versus wants, because they don't always understand that. I think that's where the whole family aspects comes into play, with understanding the family finances. I think understanding what bills and stuff that the family has can help the kids understand that this is a want or more of a need. This is something that we have to continue our everyday lifestyle, versus, oh, I want this toy or I want this video game or something like that. So it's always a kind of a fun conversation to have with the kid, because once you kind of start explaining that to them, they're like, oh, I never really looked at it that way. That's not how I expected, that response.
I think that talking to them about a budget, rather than saying, no, you can't have that, I think talking to them about a budget, say that, well, we don't have that in the budget for this month, but we'll take a look, and maybe next month we can do it. I don't think they need to know the exact amounts, this much is for our light bill, this is much for our mortgage. But I do think they need to have a concept that it isn't unlimited, that it doesn't grow on trees, and it isn't all plastic.
That is really important, I think, not only to talk to kids about the budget and about finances and what goes into making a budget, as far as, we have to pay for food and we have to pay for electricity and the house payment and all of that. Great, great points. We are going to be back in just a couple of minutes. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back, segment 2. We're going to talk about what the resources are that are available for kids and for parents to be able to teach their kids financial literacy. I'm Joni. You're watching What's Happening in Waupaca. We'll be right back.
The Waupaca Recreation Center, featuring programming for all ages. Home of the Waupaca Senior Center and youth programming Friday and Saturday nights, featuring 2 full gyms and space for various sports and activities. Visit the Dance Exercise Studio for a variety of classes. The Rec Center is a safe place to hang out. Also featuring a computer lab and classes, and a meeting room and other facilities available for rent. The Rec Center features different programming and meetings, and is the home of the Parks and Recreation Office. The Waupaca Recreation Center, a great place for all ages and activities. 407 School Street, downtown Waupaca.
Welcome back to What's Happening Waupaca. I am Joni. Today we're talking about financial literacy with Josh Pauling from Farmer State Bank. I'll get that. Connie Henn, who is with CAP Services and runs the VITA program, and Liz Kinnear from the Waupaca Public Library. In this segment, we're going to talk about the different resources each of you have that helps parents, because we talked a little bit during the break about how difficult a conversation it is for parents to have with their kids, because kids tend to be a little open mouthed. So how do we have that conversation with them and teach them without everybody in school knowing how much our mortgage payment is, kind of deal? So what resources do you guys have at your facilities, Liz?
Well, right now we are hosting Thinking Money for Kids. It's a traveling exhibit made possible by the American Library Association, ALA, and the FINRA Foundation. It's free to our library. We applied for a grant, and we're one of 50 libraries in the nation to receive this exhibit. So it's great for us to have. It's targeted at school-age kids to help teach financial literacy. Very interactive, very hands-on, but really the basics of it. So starting to understand what money is, what currency is, how much it's worth, how it works, that money can be traded for services, thinking about goals, financial goals that you might have for the future. And then along with the library, we have a lot of resources. CAP Services brought in some resources. We have stuff through the U.S. Department of the Treasury, through FINRA, just to give people a chance to see what we have there. Think about your financial goals, think about internet safety, privacy, those sorts of things. And then we have lots of books available. So to start that conversation with your kids, you can stop in and grab a Bernstein Bears book. There's lots of them up there, but then they also have a resource that goes along with those to start that conversation to talk about financial literacy. With this exhibit, we received a $1,000 programming stipend, which is fantastic for the exhibit. We've had a Cooking on a Budget program that we did. We had a program for families to come in and make banks together one morning. We'll have another one where caregivers can come in with their child and get $5. It's some play money, but then use that to budget and buy some craft materials to make crafts together. Josh was just in to talk to our teens and answer any questions that they had about financial topics. It was a teens only crash course on money, so they could stop in, ask any questions about things that they are starting to think about as they get older with jobs and having savings accounts and things like that. Otherwise, in the library in general, we do have a free legal service that comes in to answer questions that people might have, whether it's just legal-based or financial-based. I think that's once a month that someone is in to answer those questions. We try to partner with CAP Services and spread the word on the services that they provide, as well as some of the other area organizations. We have a large selection of financial books to help aid in any questions that patrons might have. We do participate in Smart Money Week. We do some programming along with that. We provide tax resources for any patrons that come in, so we have all forms available, computer terminals available for people to do their taxes if they need to do them at the library. And then we also are a site within the city for the census this year. The 2020 census is coming, which doesn't seem like a financial thing necessarily, but it actually is. Our government funding for our city and our county depend on the census. So we're a prime site for folks to stop in to take care of census information as well.
Yeah, so, like you said, Liz, I'm helping with that, banking exhibit right now, and I went in and talked to the teens about the different questions that they had about money and the different stuff that they need to prepare stuff as adults. And one of my jobs at Farmer State Bank is to help with that financial education. So what I do is I go in and talk with kindergartners all the way up through 5th grade every year during Teach Kids to Save Week, and that's usually end of March, beginning of April. And we just go in and we have a different program for all the different grades. We start with the kindergartners, just even showing them what money is, how it works, a little bit about bartering, and that money is used to buy goods. And as we work our way up, we start diving deeper and deeper into the currency and understanding how it's used. And looking at the entrepreneur side of things, of starting a business and understanding other countries' currency. So we really do a broad spectrum of the financial literacy side of things. Even diving into deep is talking about the different security features in our money. And there's a lot of those different resources that we use with the kids. And actually, we have a lot of this information on our website at fsbwaupaca.com. We've got an educational section in there that talks about a lot of these resources that we deal with the kids on. And there's stuff out there for the adults as well, talking about, you know, setting up online banking and how to do the budgeting and a little bit of those different resources that are out there to help them. And if, you know, parents or kids have questions after, you know, I go in to teach them or have these conversations, we always open it up to them that if they don't want to talk in front of a class or in front of a group of people, they're more than welcome to come into the bank and have that conversation with me or any of our personal bankers on site. Just because some people just aren't comfortable to have those conversations, kind of like we discussed in the break, is, you know, when you talk about budgeting or you talk about what you have for balances, it's not always the most comfortable conversation to have. Money is never an easy conversation to talk about. And so, you know, having that place where you're comfortable to go to talk to somebody and they can trust them, you know, is going to be very beneficial when it comes to having those conversations. And we have a lot of parents that'll bring the kids in with them, and when we're having that conversation, you can definitely tell that there's kids that are listening and understanding. Because when it comes to money, kids actually are really, really interested in the financial side of things once you get them involved in it.
Through CAP Services, we partner with the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, and we have this VITA program. It's called Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. We have volunteers that actually come in, and they're trained by the IRS. They have to be certified to prepare taxes, and we do those free of charge. I'm so glad that you open up your computer system to people that perhaps don't qualify for our program or perhaps are able to do that themselves. We also have partnered with the United Way and H&R Block, and we sponsor myfreetaxes.com. Very easy software. It's interview-based. What's your name? Did you work? Do you have a W-2? You fill in the blanks. So perhaps we could keep that in mind for your library for when people come in and they want to do their taxes. It's much faster to get your refund if you e-file. If you do it by paper, it takes a little bit longer. At CAP Services VITA program, when we begin our conversation by finding out if someone qualifies for our program, because we do serve the low to moderate income folks, we begin talking to them about possibly saving part of their refund. We have a program, it's called Save Your Refund Sweepstakes, where if they save part of their refund, they can split it by using Form 8888, and they can split it between a checking and a savings, or some people do not have checking accounts. Some people do not have savings accounts. In that case, you can split it between a savings account and perhaps a paper check, or if you have only a checking, you can buy a savings bond. And I don't know if you folks are too young, Joni and I are not, but
Thanks, Connie.
for paper savings bonds, I don't know if you know what a paper savings bond is, but that's the only way you're going to get a paper bond right now, is to purchase it through your tax refund. Right now, the Series I savings bonds, effective December 1st, of 2019 for the next 6 months, the rate is 2.22%. It varies every 6 months. You can hold the bonds for up to 30 years. They'll continue to earn interest for 30 years. Banks will cash them in after they are held for 1 year. There are a little penalties interest-wise to do that. But we have found that that's a wonderful option actually for the youth. I talked to the parents, I talked to the grandparents about perhaps they'd want to purchase one for their kids or their grandkids. Simply because if they purchase it in their name with a payable on death, say, to the child, and when that child goes to college or technical school, some type of higher education, that's cashed in, that interest is free of charge to the federal. Interest on savings bonds is always free of charge, tax-wise, for the state of Wisconsin. So we have those types of ideas. I'm seeing a lot of younger people coming in with the cards, with a prepaid card, because some of these prepaid debit cards have options between checking, which would be the debit portion, and savings. If they keep it in their checking, eventually they'll get charged, but if they move it to their savings, then they have to think about it. They don't get charged a monthly fee, but they have to think to move that to their checking account. I always feel out of sight is out of mind. If I can encourage them to just put that money aside for 30 days, 60 days, or till next year, in the case of savings bonds, that plants that seed. And I have had a lot of people, repeat customers, come back and want to buy more. You can buy up to 3 with your refunds.
That's really interesting that they can buy the bonds that way, because I actually didn't know that they still would issue the paper bonds, because I know we actually have a lot of customers that come in because of that whole out of sight, out of mind thing when they want to start that savings, want to purchase bonds, but a lot of them you have to do online now.
All of them, yes.
So that's interesting to know that if somebody's very adamant about doing it, that they could do it through their tax refund. So
Sure, and it just has to be in increments of $50.
Okay.
So if they wanted to put their whole thing in, they could only put in the amount if it was increment of $50.
Okay. Interesting.
But that is good.
And I kind of liked your idea with the whole out of sight, out of mind. We even talk about that with the elementary kids when we're out there teaching them. We always tell the kids, you know, we really push for them to start saving because of college and things like that when they start thinking about those things. And we always tell the kids, you don't have to save everything you earn. You know, take a portion of it. You know, if you get $20 for Christmas or $20 for your birthday, take 10 of it and put it in a savings account or put it somewhere where you're not going to touch it. And use that other part to spend it on whatever you want to do. And I have had kids come back to me year after year now that I've taken over the educational program, and they're like, yeah, I put money away for Christmas, completely forgot I had it, and I went to go open up my bank, and all of a sudden I had this money. So it's kind of, again, that whole out of sight, out of mind, I think really helps. If people don't think about it, they're more likely to save than if it's right there, accessible to them.
And one more thing that we sponsor, we go along with the H&R Block, as I said, for the SaveYourRefund.com. And when they split their refund, when they put it in 2 different vehicles, one of which has to be a savings type vehicle, they can be entered into this weekly drawing where there's a $100 prize. I tell them, you know, if you put this $50 in your savings account, rather than buying scratch-offs, your chance of winning the $100 is better, and you still have your $50. Last year, they had also offered 2 $10,000, yes, 2 $10,000 prizes, and those were with an essay type thing, a short essay with a picture. And last year, out of those 2 $10,000, there were only 700 entries. So your chances were very good. And you don't have to be low to moderate income to get into this sweepstakes. Matter of fact, with the myfreetaxes.com, you can split your refund right there with that as well, and then go ahead and enter into the sweepstakes. It's a wonderful, wonderful option, and it really invigorizes the savings conversation with the people.
I like hearing about all of the resources that everybody has available, because when I was growing up, I'm going to get you, Connie and I are old. When I was growing up, there weren't those kinds of things. I had a savings account at the bank. And, you know, you bring in $1, you bring in a quarter, you bring in whatever you need to bring in, but that was really all there was. If you were going to learn anything about money, you learned it from your parents.
Yes.
And if your parents didn't teach you, you were pretty out of luck. And then you go to college and you get a charge card. Oops. Yeah. Lots of us have those problems. So I'm really happy to hear that the library has so many resources. Being able to get your taxes done for free and get resources to be able to teach your kids and to be able to start saving yourself is great. And of course, to have banks that go out into the community and teach is, I think, instrumental as far as helping kids be better prepared for adulthood. So that is segment 2. We are going to be back in just a little bit, and we're going to talk about why this topic is so important. I am Joni. You're watching What's Happening in Waupaca, and we'll see you in just a little bit.
Welcome to the Waupaca Area Public Library. At our library, we have programs for all ages, starting at birth to adult and beyond. In our children's department, your children may attend children's story time, or for your really young child, we have Baby Garden. The teen room is for teens from grade 6 through high school, and we provide lots of services and programs in that room as well. We're not just about books. We have DVDs, we have music, we have puzzles, and we have lots of space for community activities. We have meeting rooms for public use, and our Winchester Academy of Waupaca uses our meeting rooms almost every Monday night. Every month, the exhibit room hosts a fun and interactive or educational exhibit. The exhibits are free, open to the public, and geared towards all ages. They're open during regular library hours. You can enter our building and use our internet computers, or you can bring your own device and use our free Wi-Fi. Our friendly staff is available to assist you with all of your information needs at the information desk or at the main desk. There is staff in every department during our open hours. One of our newest services is ebooks and downloadable audiobooks. You can access them through InfoSoup, our online catalog. Our catalog has materials from all 50 libraries in our consortium, and you can reach our catalog at infosoup.org from any internet computer. The library has plenty of great books, but so much more to offer. So stop down at your Waupaca library today.
Welcome back to What's Happening in Waupaca. I am Joni. We are talking about financial literacy for youth today. And we defined it. We talked about what kind of resources are available. We have Liz Kinnear from the Waupaca Public Library, Connie Henn from CAP Services and the VITA program, and we have Josh from Farmer State Bank is here, Josh Pauling from Farmer State Bank as well. And I really have enjoyed listening because you guys are coming at it from a little bit different direction. You're all headed to the same goal, but you're coming at it a little bit differently, which has really made this interesting. Here in segment 3, we're going to talk about the importance of teaching kids about financial literacy. What is it going to do for them once they become adults? If they're learning about currency, if they're learning about savings, if they're learning about doing taxes, how does that tie in and make you better prepared? Because I don't know about anybody else here at the table, but if you don't know anything when you go into adulthood and somebody hands you a credit card, you're in a lot of trouble. Take it from me, you're in a lot of trouble. So let's talk about that. Why is it so important to teach our kids, and how is it going to affect them when they become an adult?
I think kind of like we've talked about a little bit of the breaks and through the other parts of the segments that, it's such a broad topic to talk about in general that it's really hard to show any sort of, research behind it showing that it's going to affect kids as they get older. But from personal experience and talking with Jay Kirchmeyer that used to run the financial education program through our bank, we have a lot of kids that come back year after year that will be like, oh, I remember talking about this last year, or they get off to college and they're like, I remember having this conversation with you when I was in 4th and 5th grade, and I'm starting to save better now, and I'm making sure that I'm being financially responsible. And they're very proud of themselves, understand that they took that knowledge that they took from us and they're using it in their everyday life, and that makes us feel really good knowing that we're actually coming across and we're getting the message across that we wanted them to hear and understand. Because like you said, if you've never been taught that stuff, you go into adulthood not knowing what to expect. And I hear it a lot of times from my customers when they come in, even with their kids and stuff, and they find out that I was the one that was teaching their kid in school. They're like, I really wish we would have had something like that when we were in school. Because it's one of those things that, they touch a little bit about financial education or financial literacy in school, but it's to a very limited extent. Whereas when we come into the schools, or if they come to the library or deal with CAP services, we can dive in a little bit more deeper because that's our specialty. That's what we're doing.
I'm very thankful for your programs and yours as well, because that is 100% true. If you don't teach them when they're young, they're not going to understand it when they get thrown into the real world. With my own daughter, once she started working at age 16, I did go and we opened up a checking account for her. It was a limited, she could only do so many checks per month, that type of thing. But every month I sat down with her and I made her balance that checkbook so she knew where it was. And also when she went off to college, I wanted her to have something in case of an emergency. So I did set up a credit card with a $500 maximum on it, which isn't really high. But she learned the lesson that if she charged something on that credit card, the next month the bill came and she had to write a check, which goes round and round circle, because then she had to balance her checkbook with that, and she understood that. It was a great lesson to teach her. But I come from a banking family, so I was very fortunate because my mom was a banker as well. So we talked about these things often at our home, and I think that's very important to talk about it and keep them involved, but not for dollars and cents. So that it's not going through the neighborhood.
Right. Well, and I completely agree. Starting at a young age is just vital to get kids to understand it and plant that seed so that as they grow, whether it's that they're getting information from you guys when you stop into the schools, I think especially having it every year, it's not that they just see you once, they see you repeatedly, has a huge impact. As a kid, I don't remember getting that education in school, and if we did, it was maybe once or twice. But for kids to get it repeatedly, that's when it starts to stick, and that's when they learn those lessons. At the library, we try to reinforce it any way that we can. We don't typically have money-specific programs, but our children's librarians do a fantastic job of talking about money and story times. They're setting up a grocery store, actually, so that kids can come in and figure out kind of how that works with shopping and money and the basics of spending money targeted towards younger kids. But even through the summer learning program now, they focus not just on reading. It used to just be the summer reading program, but now it's summer learning, so that they're really trying to get kids involved with math and reading over the school year, because math is such an important foundation for any financial literacy. So just to get those building blocks there to help as kids get older and start having those bigger financial concepts is really important.
CAP Services also has poverty simulations where they will come in, like you said, setting up the grocery store. And typically this is geared towards adults, but they will come in and they've set up different stations. This is a bank, this is a grocery store, this is whatever, here's your job. And they go through, they give you so much money and you have to go around and you pay your bills with that money. And it's a great resource that's available for groups. If there are groups out there that would be interested in something like this, to give a little demonstration for their particular clients.
We do that with the kids. I believe it's our third or fourth graders, we actually play a game with them where we give them $1 million that they have to spend as a group or as a class. And you go through and you give them, they could buy a mansion or a sports car, but then you also give them like the logical choices of putting it into a savings account, buying groceries. Like we give them a wide variety of things. And it's always fun with the kids because they go for the high dollar things right away. Well, then we throw scenarios in, they buy the sports car and it's like, well, you live in Wisconsin and it's winter. They crash the sports car. And then you start giving those scenarios and they're like, oh, well, then we'll just, do this to, buy a new car. And it's like, that's not how it works. You've already spent your money on something else. And so you start going through all those different scenarios with them, and it really begins to make them think, oh, money isn't unlimited. I only have so much. And it never fails that when we first do this activity, savings and investments is the very last thing that kids look at. And once we have that conversation and we get going, then they're like, oh, we really should put more away, because if something ever happens later on in life, we have something to back ourselves up with. And so it's always kind of fun to have that conversation with those kids and see that, because then those are the kids that come back when they realize it the year after and they're like, I made sure that I went and started a savings account and I've got money put aside now, so if I need it later on, I at least have it.
That's a wonderful point, because it is a fact that 40% of the taxpayers in the United States could not cover a $500 emergency expense, either by cash on hand cash in account, in a savings or a checking account, or the ability to get credit for that $500. 40%, that's a really high percentage for something of that sort. That's why this education when they're young is so important, to get them early on to start saving.
Yeah.
That's a horrible number.
It is horrible, yes.
Because $500, what kind of an emergency does that cover? Headlight? It doesn't cover
Well, yeah,
getting
if
hit
you're-
by a deer.
Right, if you're in
No.
a car accident, most people's deductible is $500.
Yes.
So
At least,
Exactly.
or if you have to go to
Doesn't-
the emergency
sure.
room, your child gets sick or you get sick. I mean, if you have a high, we have a high deductible plan. So if that happens,
And that's
you're on the
what
hook for it.
we always try to stress, when people are opening up savings accounts or we're trying to help them, if we're having that financial discussion with some people, because we'll have people that come and say, I really struggle with saving. What should I do? What are my options? And we always try to tell them that you should save, 3 to 6 months worth of expenses into your savings account. And sometimes that's really hard to do because of the fact that there is so much going on in life and there's certain times that you need that. But you start giving them tips and tricks on getting to that point and trying to save that. And, a few years down the road, they'll come back and be like, hey, you were able to help me. I'm able to get, I have 3 to 6 months worth of my expenses saved up. So if anything ever happens, if I lose my job, if I get into an accident or something, I have something to back myself up. And it's always a really good, again, a good feeling to hear somebody come back saying, I really appreciate the advice you gave me, and it actually helped them.
And I like that because I've been in finance for a lot of years. And I just have to interject this because I would talk to people that say, I put $100 away every single paycheck. Great. How much do you have in your account? $3.52. That doesn't compute because they were trying to put away what they thought that they had to put away. But the problem is that they couldn't budget or weren't budgeting. So they ended up bringing it back out again.
Yep.
So when I was teaching my basic budgeting classes, I would say if all you can put away is $1 a week, put away $1 a week. That's it.
That's right.
Because $1 isn't going to get you anything, including a loaf of bread anymore. So you're not going to withdraw it out of your savings account because it's not going to be worth it. And it's over time, when you start to get more and more in there, you're going to, that's kind of nice. No, I don't want to touch that right now.
Yep,
And then when
exactly.
you do have something that comes up, like your refrigerator breaks, then you have a savings account. So I like that point.
And kind of going along with that, with putting a little bit away each time that you can, I have some people that like it'd be nice to have it out of sight, out of mind, like we discussed previously. And people are like, well, I can see it on my online banking, so it's so easy to transfer. Well, kind of a tip to go with that I suggest to some of my customers that I've worked with is a lot of online banking programs at most banks or credit unions have the option to hide accounts on their online banking. Hide the savings account. Put it where you hide it so you can't see it. It's still there. It still exists. But if you're less likely to look at it, you're less likely to transfer those funds out of that account.
That's a good point.
That's an excellent point. This has been so interesting. I hope everybody that's watching this or listening to it has enjoyed it as much as I have, because this is a topic that I think is really important for adults to listen to, because I think it's important to teach our younger generation, our kids, our grandkids, our neighbors' kids, nieces, nephews, whatever, anything that we can do to help them be a little bit better prepared for adulthood. So thank you, Josh. Really enjoyed meeting you and having you on the show today. Connie, thanks for being here. I haven't seen you in a while, but it
Yes.
was good to see you again and have you on and hear about
as
the
well.
VITA program. And Liz Kinnear, I love the exhibit here
Thank you.
at the library. So good job. One of 50 places in the nation. Kudos
Wow.
to the Waupaca Public
Wonderful.
Library.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
that is great. How long does the exhibit go?
The exhibit is here through January 25th.
Okay.
So just another week.
Up until the 25th, you can come into the library. Otherwise, look for it some other place.
It will be in Milwaukee. Milwaukee is the only other city in Wisconsin to host the
Okay.
exhibit. I'm not sure when it's in Milwaukee, but it will be in Milwaukee at their public library as well.
That puts Waupaca on the map. That's kind of fun.
guess.
Yeah.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today. I do hope you enjoyed our program. My name is Joni, and you're watching What's Happening in Waupaca. We'll see you next time.